Today I'm going to do a short video tutorial on how to configure your wireless router as a repeater or repeater bridge. In this video I'm going to be using a Linksys wireless router. It is a WRT54GS model. If you're unsure if your router, before you start on anything, if you're unsure if your router is able to be configured with the DD-WRT software, go to their website under the router database tab. Check and make sure your router is compatible with their software. You simply enter your router and model number, and if it's compatible, the list will pop up and say yes or no. It's as simple as that. If it's not compatible, you'll need to get a router that is compatible. A lot of their software is supported on hundreds of different routers, so it's pretty common. Most people have a router that is compatible, but they come out with all these new ones all the time that are not. So just go to their website, DDWRT.com, check out their router database, make sure your router is compatible, and make sure that you download the correct firmware version for your router. Otherwise, you could potentially brick your router. In a sense, you can render it useless if you install the wrong firmware. So you need to make sure that it matches. That's just kind of a warning. Anyways, again, I'm going to be using a WRT54GS. It's Linksys, and I'll be using the DD-WRT software. And the purpose of this video is to show you how to configure it as a repeater or repeater bridge. I'm not going to go into how to install the DD-WRT in this video onto the router. That's pretty straightforward. There's lots of other videos out there on how to do that. Real simple to do. Just takes a few minutes. So anyways, before we get started, I'll try not to blab here too much. I just want to be as thorough as I can. I know when I was learning how to do this, I couldn't find any videos that were 100% thorough on how to do it, so I'm going to try and be that way. But anyway, some of you might be asking, what's a repeater? What's a repeater bridge? Repeater is basically just a glorified powered antenna. It turns your router into kind of a big glove. It will grab a original access point's wireless signal and extend it. It will just repeat it out. So it grabs it, just duplicates it, and sends it out even farther away from that access point. So it's the wireless, the repeater and the repeater bridge are essentially the same thing, but instead of the repeater being a wireless repeater, if you set it up as a repeater bridge, it will actually repeat the original wireless signal through the ports in the back of the router. So you can actually repeat that wireless signal you grabbed through your Ethernet cables, so you can be directly connected to your repeater if you'd like. That's actually how I have mine set up. It seems to be a lot more reliable, but it does work as a repeater great too. So either way, this video will cover both of those. Okay, before we get started, I'd like to mention that if you're using the Linksys WRT54GS, by default the IP address on that router is 192.168.1.1. Depending on which router you're using, the default address could be different. Just make sure you know what your default IP was when you got started on all this. So, and another thing I'd like to mention is, if you're real sketchy about doing this, the first thing you can do is log into the original user interface on your router, and you can create a backup for it. So if at any time you want to take the DD-WRT firmware off of your router, you can revert back to the original factory software that was on it. So that's your call if you want to do that. I've never had a problem with DD-WRT. It's never failed on me, so I don't even do that anymore when I set these up. There's really no point. The routers are so cheap anyways. I got my router at the local Goodwill. $5 is all it cost me. Came with a power cord, and it works great. So the main purpose of me originally doing this was when I moved into my home. I was pinching pennies. I could not afford anything because this house was costing me so much money. I was able to get in a better position now where I can afford some things. So I do have my own internet connection now. But for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you the repeater function being used off of an access point that is down at the end of my street, basically a block away. But I'm only doing this to show you how good the repeater function actually works. The wireless signal that I'll be using, I did not hack into. It's an open network. I was able to pinpoint with a Wi-Fi analyzer where the actual signal was coming from, and it is clear at the end of my street. Now I have a pretty clear line of sight at it, so I'm able to connect to it. Pretty simple, but yeah, it's about a block away, which is just blows my mind that I'm able to grab it and repeat it, and it works great throughout my home. So that's just for the sake of the video. Again, I'm not doing anything illegal here. It's an open connection. I didn't hack into it. So I will show you. We'll get started here. The very first thing you want to do after you've got the software installed is open up a browser, and to access the DD-WRT interface, you're going to want to type that IP address of your router. So mine being 192.168.1.1. Now, I'm sorry, I'm connected to the wrong network here. Where is it? There it is, DD-WRT. I want to connect to this. Again, it's always a good idea to do this with a Ethernet cable from your computer to that router, but because that router is in the back of my house right now, for the sake of the video, I'm just going to connect to it wirelessly so I can set this up. Okay, let's try this again. Open your browser, 192.168.1.1. Okay, here we go. The very first thing you're going to see when you log into the interface is going to tell you that you're not currently protected and you need to set up a username and a password. So pick whatever you like for a username and a password. I'll just name mine Thunderclap. That'll be the network name too. So once you get that set up, just click change password. You want to do this as soon as possible too, so nobody else tries to access your router and they can change all that before you get a chance to. So once you change that, you'll get the general information page here. This is what you're going to see every time you type in the IP of your router. This is the first thing that's going to pop up. You can't change any of this until you log in. So go ahead and click the setup tab, and it's going to ask you for your login that you just created. So we'll do Thunderclap and the password. Okay, this is the user interface. You'll be on the setup tab by default. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go down here to the local IP. By default, again, it's 192.168.1.1. Now I have 3 routers on my network total, and 2 of them, one being the repeater and another one I have in the house, have the same IP address by default, being 192.168.1.1. And that cannot happen. You can't have any routers on your network have the same IP address. They will conflict and nothing will work. You can't get on the internet, you can't get on your network, nothing. So the first thing you want to do is log into this and change this IP address to something other than .1.1. For the sake of the video, we'll just make it 69.1. The rest of this you can leave the same. I'm going to go ahead and rename my router to Thunderclap. And yeah, all that can stay default settings. Go ahead and click Apply Settings. The router's going to go ahead and reboot now, and again, this will take about a minute or 2 to do. So don't try and log back into the router or anything. Give it a good solid 2 minutes before you attempt to log back in. Let it reboot. It'll say unit is rebooting now. Please wait a moment. Nothing's going to pop back up because you just changed your IP. So you need to re-enter the new IP now to access it. So you'll go ahead and just close out of that browser. Just close it and open up a new one. And again, you want to wait about 2 minutes. In fact, I'm going to pause the video just for a second just to make sure I waited long enough. Okay, so I've waited about 2 minutes now. So now what we're going to do to log into our interface is we're going to type our new IP address that we just created, which mine is 192.168.69.1. And it looks like my router still hasn't rebooted. Let's try this one more time. I don't like doing this until it's rebooted, but there we go. Okay. So now our new interface access IP is going to be what you create, what you change that IP address to. So that's how you're always going to access your router from now on. Go ahead and click on your setup tab again. It's going to ask you for that information you created. Oh, come on. Because I'm doing this wirelessly, it's lagging. In fact, now that I've got the IP address has changed, I can go ahead and plug my Ethernet cable back in that's routed through my other routers, and I won't have to do this wirelessly anymore. Okay, we're going to try one more time. Sorry for the delay. 192.168.69.1. There we go. And we'll enter information again. Okay, here we go. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do, sorry for that confusion, is go over to the security tab, and under security you want to make sure all these boxes are unchecked. Every single one of them you want unchecked. Do not click disable until you uncheck all those, because if you do, it will not allow you to uncheck them. So uncheck everything and then click disable, and anytime you're using it as a repeater, you want to make sure all your security functions are disabled on the repeater. Otherwise they'll conflict with the other router security settings. Click apply, and this won't actually reboot the router, it applies the settings. So okay, the next thing you want to do is go over to the wireless tab, and this is where you're going to set up what your router does, whether it be an access point, a repeater bridge, ad hoc, client, you name it. Under the wireless mode here, you'll see all your options here. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to set it up as a repeater, and if you're going to be setting it up as a bridge, remember I talked about earlier, a repeater and repeater bridge are essentially the same thing, but the bridge allows the repeated Wi-Fi signal to be sent out through the ports in the back of the router, so you can be directly connected. But we'll just set it up as a repeater for the video. The network mode, mixed, go ahead and leave that mixed. Now your network SSID, you need to make sure this matches the original access point SSID. So I had mentioned earlier, when I first moved in, I was grabbing that one down the road. So for the sake of the video, we're gonna use that one. I'm gonna show you that one. So make sure that matches your original network, the SSID name. So theirs, for instance, I know is Wonder Squid. The channel, if you know the channel of the original connection you're connecting to, go ahead and put it in here. Otherwise, it's going to automatically scan and it'll find it for you, so it doesn't really matter. But whether you want this extended network to be broadcast, that's up to you. You can disable this, so you will only see the original one way down the street. It'll still be there through the repeater, you just won't see it if you click disabled. So we'll just leave this enabled for right now. And then go ahead and click apply settings. And now this is the cool part. This is the part I like. You can create what's called a virtual interface. You're probably familiar with that. You might not be. What it is, we'll go ahead and click add. And what it allows you to do is enter a new SSID name, and we'll go ahead and name that one Thunderclap 2. And what that does is it takes that original wireless signal that you're grabbing and repeating, and basically repeats it out through its own network. You created your own network here. So you could be at home, you know, you're looking for a wireless signal to connect to. You're going to see this interface now, Thunderclap. It's going to be your own network, and I'll show you here in a minute. We can set up security on it and everything, but it's going to be using that original Wi-Fi signal that you're repeating. So I think that's pretty cool. If you want to set up a guest account or something with no password, you can do that, and you can add as many interfaces as you'd like. So I'll just add the one, and we'll leave all these settings by default, and we'll click apply. And again, you can name that whatever you want your network to be named. Okay, next thing we'll do is we'll go to wireless security. Now you'll see here I have two because I set up the virtual interface Thunderclap, and I have the original interface, which is this is going to be the original internet connection that I'm repeating. Now again, theirs is an open network. They don't have any security on it, so we're going to leave that disabled. Now if the network you're going to be repeating has security, you need to make sure it matches in this drop down here. Make sure they match and they're set up exactly the same, and then you'll have to make sure the password is in there too once you pick that. So it's got to match the password of the original access point. But because theirs is open, we'll leave it disabled. Now on my network my virtual interface I created, I want to go ahead and enable some security. So I'm going to go with WPA2 personal mixed. And it'll ask you here to enter the password you want to use for that network. Let's go ahead and just enter that and then click apply settings. Now, as you can see, my router now has a WAN IP address. Actually, I'm sorry, give it a second. It's just rebooting here. There it is. It's got an IP address now. So, and as you can see, my little globe is down here, and it says local and internet. So now it's actually working as a repeater. I have an internet connection. Um, Again, that connection's clear down the road. It just still blows my mind that it can grab it that far away and it works as good as it does. I mean, I've downloaded multiple videos and I mean, I watch YouTube all the time and play on the internet through that connection. Well, when I originally was using it anyways, and it worked great. I mean, I never had a problem with it. It's relatively fast. So that's the basic function of the repeater. You can get a little more in depth with it under the advanced settings. You'll see here there's a lot of stuff you can change. Now, I don't recommend messing with any of this unless you know what you're doing. There's some basic things you can play with. Your transmit power. By default, my Linksys WRT54GS I think only has 28 milliwatts of transmit power. By installing the DD-WRT, it automatically bumps that up to 71, but you can bump it up. So you'll see here, for instance, mine, I can go as high as 251. I see no point in going that high because I don't need to transmit that far, but that will actually boost the power of the Wi-Fi signal that it repeats out, so you can actually shoot it out even farther. I'm just going to set mine at 100. It's kind of a happy medium. And then I have an afterburner function on my router, so I'm going to go ahead and enable that. If you don't have it, not a big deal. The rest of this you can leave alone. I actually find that if I change the beacon interval to 70, I get a little better results out of the internet connection. Now, I like to set that number lower if the connection between the repeater and the original access point is not very good. If the connection's better, you can set that number a lot higher. I mean, as you can see here, you can go up to 65,000 something. So I'll leave it. I'll just put that at 70 for the sake of the video. You don't have to change any of that if you don't want. By default, it's going to work fine. You can change, if you have a dual antenna router like I do, you can change which antenna transmits and which antenna receives the wireless signal. So if you got kind of a direction thing going on, you know, maybe your wireless signal is coming from one side and you need to shoot it out, you know, 90 degrees the other way or 180 degrees the other way, you can switch the antennas back and forth, and you'll find by playing with that you get a little better results, or just leave it on auto. That's what I do. So anyways, the multimedia support settings, I don't play with any of that. In fact, I just right here I click disable and it gets rid of it. Kind of keeps it a little more simpler. And then once you're done, just click apply settings and go over to the status tab next, and then under status click on wireless. Give it a second here. I need to reload that. There we go. You'll see it's rebooting because I just changed that. But right here under access point and clients, you will see the connection between the repeater and the original access point. ETH1, that is the connection between the two. That you'll always see that as long as you're using it as a repeater. See here's 17%. I know that's not that good, but keep in mind that house is clear down at the end of the street. So I can actually move the router around, and by putting my little windsurfer antennas on there, I can actually get it up to about 25, 27%, which even at that it works good. So I don't actually have to use the windsurfers anymore because I'm only using the repeater on my own home network now. But for, you know, the video being down the road, the windsurfers actually work pretty good. So you can do a site survey. You don't have to, but if you're looking for an open network or something, you know, here's another open network within vicinity of me. It's not very good, but it's there. You can see all these other ones say no, they're closed or whatever. But say some of these are yours, one's yours or something. To make this a lot simpler as a repeater, you can go into site survey, find your network, and click join. And even if you have your security on, you know, you'll just be prompted to enter the password and everything for it, and then it's as simple as that. So this just shows you all the wireless networks that are available in the area that the router repeater can see. So pretty simple. Administration, this is where you can change your router username if you want to, or the password stuff. Down here at the bottom, you've got your frequency. I'm going to go ahead and change mine from the default 216 to 240. And we'll click apply settings. Now this is going to reboot the router. So I'll go ahead and pause the video again for a second until it reboots. Okay, so the router is rebooted now. We can, that actually, you know, that pretty much sums it up. Again, I go to the status tab here, go to wireless, and see That's actually not my connection because it's rebooting. It'll go back down. But yeah, this on the status tab under wireless, this just kind of shows you what's going on. It shows you the original SSID. It shows you the channel it's on, what your transmit power is, the rate that the routers are transmitting data. Pretty basic stuff. Shows you basically what the router's doing. But as long as you see this connection right here, ETH1, this connection between the repeater and the original access point. As long as you see that, that means you have a connection. Look up here, see your WAN IP. That means you're connected. So, yeah, pretty basic, pretty easy to use. And again, the $5 I spent at the Goodwill, this has been a lifesaver for me. I love it to death. And like I said, you can go out and buy a repeater, but I think they cost like $100 or something. And why not just save yourself the money and pick one up? I see them on Craigslist all the time and stuff for $15. So great investment. Works excellent. Just trying to think if there's anything else I should cover here. That pretty much takes care of it. I hope I was thorough enough. I hope I didn't blab too much. Sorry if I did. One more thing I want to point out. Under the setup tab here, you see where it says WAN port. Assign WAN port to switch. What this is on your repeater, your wireless router you're using for a repeater, you can actually assign the original port that would be your internet port to be another Ethernet port. So instead of just say you have 4 ports on the back of your router, you can check this box and it will make your input internet port another external port. So it'll actually give you 5 ports instead of 4, which is pretty cool. If you're using it for a repeater, then you don't need that port to be an internet port anymore. So anyways, yeah, again, that covers it. If you have any questions, any comments, if I forgot to cover something, please let me know and I'll take care of it. I'll fix it. So thanks for watching the video.